July 1940. Karl Probst sits across from two US Army procurement officers who've just handed him a folder. Inside are specifications for a vehicle that shouldn't exist. Can't exist, according to every major automotive manufacturer in America. The Army needs a lightweight reconnaissance vehicle. It has to carry 3 men, plus equipment, handle any terrain, be simple enough for a farm boy to repair with a wrench, and weigh less than 1,300 pounds. The engine needs to be powerful enough to climb mountains, but efficient enough to run all day on a single tank. Oh, and one more thing. 49 days, the lead officer says, tapping the folder. We need a working prototype in 49 days. Probst looks at the specs again. His competitors, Ford, General Motors, Chrysler, 132 other companies, have already declined. They've done the math. They've consulted their engineers. It's impossible. The requirements contradict each other. You want it light but strong, powerful but economical, simple but capable. Pick 2. Maybe. The army officer leans forward. Mr. Probst, can you build this vehicle? Probst should say no. Any rational engineer would say no. The timeline alone is insane. Designing a completely new vehicle in 7 weeks. His company, Bantam, is tiny, nearly bankrupt, operating out of a former steel mill. They don't have Ford's resources or GM's engineering teams. But Probst looks at those specifications and sees something the big companies missed. He sees not what the army is asking for, but what it actually needs. Not perfection. Not elegance. Just something that works. Yes, he says. The officers exchange glances. They don't believe him. Nobody believes him. 5 days later, Probst hasn't slept. His drafting table is buried under coffee cups, overflowing ashtrays and hundreds of sketches. He's not designing a car. He's solving a puzzle that no one else thinks has a solution. Every few hours, his hand cramps and he has to stop, flex his fingers, shake feeling back into them. Then he keeps drawing, because he's realized something. The reason everyone else failed isn't because the vehicle is impossible. It's because they're thinking about it wrong. They're trying to build a car that happens to have military uses. Probst is designing a tool that happens to have wheels. No doors, they add weight and complexity. No top, same reason. No spare tire well, no trunk. No dashboard beyond the absolute minimum. Every single component has to justify its existence. If it doesn't make the vehicle move, stop, or survive, it doesn't make the cut. Strip away everything. Build only what's necessary. Make it simple enough that it can't break. And when it does break, make it simple enough that anyone can fix it. On September 23rd, 1940, a strange-looking vehicle rolls off a flatbed truck at Camp Holabird, Maryland. The army testing officers gather around it, and Probst can see it in their faces. Disappointment bordering on contempt. It looks like someone welded a park bench to a lawnmower. It's ugly, brutally utilitarian. One officer circles it slowly, then actually laughs. This is what you built in 7 weeks. Yes, sir, Probst says. His vehicle weighs 1,840 pounds. 540 pounds over specification. He knows this. The army knows this. But he also knows something they don't. Let's see what it can do, the lead testing officer says, his tone suggesting this will be a very short demonstration. What happens over the next 3 days will change everything. The Jeep, nobody's calling it that yet, it's still light reconnaissance vehicle Bantam model, doesn't just meet the Army's requirements. It exceeds them, demolishes them. They point it at a 60-degree slope, The kind of incline that would stop a normal vehicle cold. The Jeep crawls straight up. They drive it through mud 18 inches deep. It powers through. They ford a stream, drive it over railroad ties, slam it over rough terrain at speed. The officers stop smiling, start taking notes. On the second day, they get creative with the torture tests. They disconnect the steering linkage. The Jeep still drives, carefully, but it drives. They remove 3 spark plugs, so the engine is running on only 1 cylinder. It keeps going, slower but functional. They drain half the oil from the crankcase, then drive it another 500 miles to simulate battlefield damage and neglect. The engine doesn't seize, doesn't fail, just keeps running with that distinctive sound, that mechanical heartbeat that will soon become familiar to millions of soldiers across 3 continents. By early 1941, the Army has accepted a modified design, mostly from Willys, who submitted a more powerful engine and placed orders for 16,000 vehicles. Ford gets involved too, for mass production capacity. Together, Willys and Ford will eventually build over 640,000 Jeeps. The name Jeep itself is mysterious. Some say it comes from GP, General Purpose Vehicle. Others claim it's from Eugene the Jeep, a cartoon character from Popeye who could go anywhere and do anything. Either way, by 1941, everyone's calling it a Jeep, and the name sticks. But here's the thing. Americans don't fully appreciate yet. They've accidentally created something revolutionary. The Jeep weighs 2,450 pounds, about as much as a modern Honda Civic. It has a 60 horsepower engine, can carry 800 pounds of cargo, and gets 16 miles per gallon. It has 4-wheel drive, a feature so rare in 1941 that most people have never heard of it. Its ground clearance means it can drive over obstacles that would stop a car cold. Most importantly, it's simple. A decent mechanic can strip the entire thing down and rebuild it in a few hours. There are no complicated systems, no finicky components. Break apart, replace it, run out of oil? It'll keep going anyway, at least for a while. The Jeep is not the best at any one thing, but it's good enough at everything. Now, fast forward to June 6th, 1944. D-Day. On the beaches of Normandy, among the first vehicles to roll off landing craft are Jeeps, thousands of them. They're everywhere, towing anti-tank guns, carrying wounded, rushing ammunition to the front, evacuating officers from under fire. Within days, they're driving through hedgerows, across fields, through destroyed villages. And the Germans are watching. To understand why the Germans initially dismissed the Jeep, you need to understand German military philosophy in 1944. The Wehrmacht, the German armed forces, believes in engineering superiority. Their vehicles are engineered, precisely calculated. Their Kübelwagen, designed by Ferdinand Porsche, is a masterpiece of efficiency. Lightweight, air-cooled, capable. It's what a military vehicle should be. When German soldiers first encounter abandoned American Jeeps in Normandy, their reaction is dismissive. The Jeep looks primitive compared to their Kübelwagen. It's heavier. It has a liquid-cooled engine. Why complicate things? It seems almost comically overbuilt for what it does. Oberleutnant Friedrich Becker, a Wehrmacht logistics officer, writes in his diary on July 3rd, 1944. Captured another American Jeep today. Clumsy thing. Our Kübelwagen is far superior in design. The Americans build everything like farm equipment. Crude but functional. Still, the men wanted to keep it for spare parts. Notice that last line. The men wanted to keep it, because something's starting to happen on the ground level, something the officers don't see yet. The German army in France is disintegrating, not because of lack of courage or tactical skill, but because of something more fundamental. They're running out of everything. Fuel, spare parts, vehicles. The Allied air forces have destroyed their supply lines. The Normandy bocage, those dense hedgerows, has chewed up their vehicles at a catastrophic rate. By August 1944, a typical German company that started the campaign with 12 Kubelwagens might have 3 still running, maybe 2, and there are no replacements coming. Meanwhile, the Americans have jeeps everywhere. They seem inexhaustible. Break one, another appears. The Germans start to notice something else. American jeeps just keep running. They see jeeps with bullet holes, jeeps with shrapnel damage, jeeps that by all rights should be dead, still moving. And they start to capture them. Not for scrap. To use. The first German units to systematically capture and use American jeeps are reconnaissance battalions, Aufklärungsabteilung. This makes sense. These units move fast, range far ahead of main forces, and need reliable vehicles. Their own equipment is wearing out. By September 1944, as the German army retreats toward the Rhine, something remarkable happens. Captured jeeps start appearing in official reports. A memo from the 21st Panzer Division, dated September 18th, 1944, notes, Battalion has acquired 7 American reconnaissance vehicles. Jeeps. These vehicles have proven remarkably durable and are being retained for operational use. Request approval for continued use and acquisition of spare parts from captured supply dumps. 7 jeeps. That doesn't sound like much, but this is a Panzer Division, an elite armoured unit officially requesting permission to use enemy vehicles. That's unprecedented. The memo goes up the chain of command. Someone at Wehrmacht High Command must have read it and thought, what the hell is happening out there? What's happening is a quiet revolution. German soldiers at the front are doing battlefield calculus. Would I rather have a proper German vehicle that might break down and has no spare parts, or an American vehicle that just works? More and more, they're choosing the Jeep. By October 1944, captured Jeeps are everywhere in German units. They're being repainted in Wehrmacht grey-green. They're getting German markings, German radio equipment. Some units are welding machine gun mounts onto them, something the Americans already thought of. The Jeep can mount a .30 or .50 caliber machine gun easily. The Germans are discovering what American soldiers already know. The Jeep is almost impossible to kill. Pour water in the gas tank. It'll cough and sputter and keep going. Drive it through a swamp? Just drain it out and keep moving. One report describes a captured Jeep that was hit by small arms fire 37 times. They counted, and it still drove 60 kilometers back to German lines. But here's what really starts to change minds. The Jeep's carrying capacity. German soldiers start loading Jeeps with absolutely everything. A single Jeep can carry 6 wounded men if you pile them in. It can tow a 37mm anti-tank gun plus ammunition. It can carry 16 jerry cans of fuel strapped to every available surface. It's not designed to do any of this. The Americans would be horrified. But it can. And that's what matters. One German lieutenant writes home in November 1944, "We have been using an American Jeep for 3 weeks. It is the finest vehicle I have ever commanded. The men fight over who gets to drive it. December 16th, 1944. The Ardennes forest in Belgium and Luxembourg. Hitler launches his last major offensive in the west, Unternehmen Wacht am Rhein, Operation Watch on the Rhine. The Americans will call it the Battle of the Bulge. It's a massive surprise attack with 200,000 German soldiers, 1,000 tanks, and one enormous problem. They don't have enough fuel to reach their objectives. Hitler's plan depends on capturing American fuel supplies. The offensive must be fast, punch through American lines, capture fuel dumps, keep moving before the Allies can respond, and capture vehicles, any vehicles, especially jeeps. The opening days of the Bulge are chaos. Entire American units are overrun or retreat in disorder. In the confusion, they abandon equipment, ammunition, fuel, food, and vehicles. Lots of vehicles, including jeeps. This is where we return to SS Hauptsturmführer Weber from our opening. He's with the 1st SS Panzer Division, spearheading the northern shoulder of the offensive. His combat group is supposed to reach the Meuse River within 3 days. They're already behind schedule. His tanks are nearly out of fuel. When his men find those abandoned American jeeps, engines running, tanks full, it's like discovering a gold mine. Within hours, Weber's unit has captured 17 jeeps. They don't bother with paperwork or authorization. They just take them, paint quick German markings on the hoods, and press them into service immediately. The jeeps become everything: reconnaissance vehicles, ammunition runners, ambulances, command posts. German officers start riding in them because they're faster and more reliable than their own vehicles. Weber himself switches to a jeep, reasoning that speed matters more than armor at this point. But something else happens during the Bulge, something that terrifies both sides. At the same time as the main offensive, Hitler launches a special operation, Unternehmen Greif, Operation Griffin. The commander is SS Obersturmbannführer Otto Skorzeny, Germany's most famous commando, the man who rescued Mussolini from a mountain prison. Skorzeny's mission: infiltrate American lines using captured American vehicles and uniforms, spread chaos, cut communication lines, misdirect reinforcements, change road signs, capture bridges. He's specifically requested American jeeps, as many as possible. Skorzeny manages to scrape together about 30 jeeps, plus a handful of other American vehicles. He recruits soldiers who speak English. Not many, Germany is running out of those, and dresses them in American uniforms with American gear. On December 16th, as the offensive begins, Skorzeny's men drive through American lines in their captured jeeps. They're terrifyingly effective. They cut phone lines. They send American units driving in wrong directions. They spread rumors that German paratroopers have landed. They cause massive confusion, but they also create a much bigger problem. Within 2 days, word spreads through American units. German soldiers are infiltrating in American uniforms, driving American jeeps. The paranoia becomes overwhelming. American soldiers start stopping every jeep, questioning every driver. Officers have to prove their identity by answering questions about baseball or naming US state capitals. General Omar Bradley, one of the most senior American commanders, gets stopped 3 times in 1 day and questioned. When he can't remember the capital of Illinois, "It's Springfield," he said Chicago. MPs detain him for several hours. The Jeep has become suspect. The vehicle that represented American mobility and freedom is now, potentially, the enemy. But here's the irony. Operation Grief only works because captured jeeps are so common by December 1944 that German soldiers driving them doesn't seem unusual. The jeep has become universal. Both sides are using them. The vehicle has transcended its own army. As the Battle of the Bulge continues through late December and into January 1945, the German obsession with captured jeeps intensifies. The offensive has failed. The Germans didn't reach their objectives, didn't capture enough fuel, didn't break the American lines. Now they're retreating again, back toward Germany, and they're doing it in the worst winter in decades. Snow measured in feet, temperatures well below freezing, roads that are more like rivers of ice and mud. And their vehicles are dying. German trucks, half-tracks, even tanks. They're breaking down, running out of fuel, getting stuck. The Wehrmacht is dissolving into a walking army. Soldiers on foot, hauling their equipment, freezing to death in the Belgian forest. But the jeeps keep running. A captured German memo from January 1945, found after the war in Wehrmacht records, contains this remarkable passage. All units are authorized to retain and utilize captured American Jeep vehicles. These vehicles have proven exceptionally reliable under adverse conditions and are to be maintained in operational status. Priority for fuel and maintenance is equivalent to frontline armored vehicles. Commanders are reminded that captured jeeps are high-value assets and are not to be abandoned except under direct enemy fire. Read that again. The German army, the Wehrmacht, is officially stating that captured jeeps have the same priority as tanks. By late January 1945, some German units are more than 50% equipped with captured American vehicles. A reconnaissance battalion might have 2 German vehicles and 8 American jeeps. Nobody cares anymore. The jeep works, that's all that matters. German soldiers start calling captured jeeps Ami-Schlitten, American sleds. Some units paint elaborate camouflage on them. Others leave them in American colours, figuring the confusion helps. A few units become proprietary, even affectionate about their captured jeeps, giving them nicknames, maintaining them carefully. There are reports, impossible to verify but consistent enough to be credible, of German soldiers refusing direct orders to abandon captured jeeps. An officer orders a unit to destroy vehicles before retreating. The soldiers destroy the German trucks but hide the jeeps, then discover them again at the next position. The jeep has created a weird loyalty that transcends nationalism. By early 1945, German engineers finally get their hands on intact jeeps and start proper technical analysis. What they discover shocks them. The jeep isn't better engineered than German vehicles. In many ways, it's cruder. The tolerances aren't as tight. The components aren't as precisely machined. By German standards, it's almost sloppy. But that's exactly why it works. A report from a German automotive engineer, dated February 1945, explains, "The American vehicle is designed to different principles than our own. Where we seek precision and efficiency, they seek reliability and ease of manufacture. The engine components have deliberately loose tolerances, which reduces performance, but allows the engine to function under damage or contamination that would destroy a German engine. The four-wheel drive system is simpler than our designs, but far more robust. Every component appears designed for rapid replacement by unskilled personnel." The engineer is describing something that German military philosophy never quite grasped the difference between elegant design and functional design. German vehicles were engineered to be perfect. American vehicles were engineered to be good enough. And in a war where nothing is perfect, where everything breaks and there's never enough time or parts to fix it properly, good enough beats perfect every time. The Jeep could run on low-quality fuel. It could go thousands of miles between major maintenance. Any idiot could fix most problems with basic tools. It didn't need specialized parts. There were millions of Jeeps. Parts were everywhere. It was the Toyota Corolla of military vehicles. Boring, reliable, unkillable. The Germans had built Porsches. The Americans had built Honda Civics. In a war of attrition, the Civic wins. As the war moves into its final months, February, March, April 1945, the German army is in full retreat on all fronts. The Russians are coming from the east, the Americans and British from the west. Germany itself is being invaded, and all across the shrinking German lines, there are captured Jeeps. American reconnaissance units start reporting something bizarre. They'll encounter German positions, and among the destroyed or abandoned German vehicles, there will be Jeeps, American Jeeps, sometimes painted German grey, sometimes with German markings, sometimes with German radio equipment hastily welded on. It's disorienting. The Americans are essentially recovering their own vehicles. One particularly surreal encounter happens in March 1945 near Remagen, where the Americans captured a bridge across the Rhine. A German counterattack comes up the road, and American machine gunners open fire. When they check the destroyed vehicles afterward, 3 of the 5 are American Jeeps, captured weeks earlier, now crewed by German soldiers, now destroyed by Americans. The Jeep has become a strange symbol of the war's chaos. Nobody owns it. Everybody uses it. It's American, but it's also German. But it's really neither. It's just a tool that soldiers need to survive. By April 1945, as Germany collapses entirely, the Wehrmacht is issuing orders that are both practical and pathetic. All personnel are authorized to requisition any available transportation, including enemy vehicles, for retreat to defensive positions. They're not even calling them captured vehicles anymore. Just any transportation. Use whatever moves. In the final weeks of the war, there are reports of German soldiers driving Jeeps into American lines to surrender. They've given up, but they're still using the Jeeps, because even in surrender, you need transportation. May 8th, 1945, victory in Europe. The war ends. In the aftermath, Allied forces find captured Jeeps everywhere, in Germany, in Austria, in Czechoslovakia. Some are destroyed, many are still running. A few are in better condition than when they were captured. German soldiers maintained them obsessively. The US Army starts recovering them, bringing them back into American service. Some Jeeps have been captured, used by Germans for months, recaptured by Americans, captured again, and recaptured again. There are Jeeps that changed hands 4 or 5 times during the war, each time being repainted, remarked, and put back into service. One Jeep, recovered in Berlin in June 1945, has had 7 different unit markings painted over each other. Layers of history in olive drab and grey-green. It still runs perfectly. In the years immediately after the war, as historians and military analysts study what happened, the Jeep story becomes a case study in military logistics and design philosophy. The Germans had spent decades building a military focused on quality and precision. Every vehicle was engineered to high standards, Every weapon was precisely manufactured. Their military philosophy assumed that superior engineering would provide battlefield advantage. The Americans had built an army focused on quantity and reliability. Their vehicles were good enough, but there were millions of them. Their weapons were simple enough that anyone could use them. Their military philosophy assumed that adequate equipment in massive quantities would overwhelm superior but scarce enemy equipment. The Jeep proved the American philosophy correct. Germany produced about 50,000 Kübelwagens during the entire war. America produced 640,000 Jeeps. Even if the Kübelwagen was twice as good, and by most measures it wasn't, the math doesn't work. You can't win by having better vehicles. You win by having enough vehicles. And the Jeep was enough. More than enough. Today, the Jeep is iconic. It's one of the most recognizable military vehicles in history. The design influenced everything that came after. Land Rovers, Toyota, Land Cruisers, Humvees, modern Jeep Wranglers. The basic concept, lightweight, four-wheel drive, go-anywhere utility vehicle, has become standard. But the Jeep's real legacy isn't technical, it's philosophical. The Jeep proved that in war, perfection is the enemy of good enough. That reliability beats performance. That simplicity beats sophistication. That a tool that works in the real world, under real conditions, with real soldiers who are tired and scared and don't have time for complicated systems, beats a tool that's theoretically superior but practically fragile. The Germans learned this lesson the hard way. They started the war with beautiful, precisely engineered vehicles. They ended it stealing American Jeeps because those crude, simple, overbuilt farm equipment on wheels vehicles actually worked. There's a photo from May 1945, taken somewhere in occupied Germany. A line of German prisoners is marching into captivity, guarded by American soldiers. The Americans are riding in jeeps. Of course they are. But if you look closely at the background, you can see an abandoned vehicle on the side of the road. It's a jeep, with German markings. Still running. You can see exhaust coming from the tailpipe, but abandoned because its crew surrendered. It's a perfect metaphor. The Germans laughed at the Jeep when they first saw it, called it a toy, a crude American contraption, mocked its simple design and utilitarian appearance. Then they spent years desperately trying to capture as many as possible, fighting over them, hoarding them, maintaining them more carefully than their own vehicles, because they learned what the American soldiers already knew. Sometimes the best tool isn't the most sophisticated one. Sometimes the best tool is the one that just works. And the Jeep worked. Through Normandy's hedgerows, through the frozen Ardennes, through the rubble of German cities. It worked in the desert, in the mountains, in the mud, in the snow. It worked when everything else failed. The Germans laughed at the American Jeep, until it became the most captured prize of the war. Until they realized that maybe the Americans knew something about building for war that German engineering had missed. Until they understood that in the crucible of actual combat, crude and reliable beats elegant and fragile every single time. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of World War II's most unexpected stories, hit that like button and subscribe for more forgotten history. Drop a comment and let me know. What other overlooked military equipment should we explore? Until next time.